This is Jamie Dyer welcoming you to another edition of the Quo-Cast. And in this episode, I want to talk to you about 3 tracks which Rick Parfitt had a hand in for other artists. Now, over several decades, Rick wrote many classic songs for Quo, Rain being one, and so many co-writes over the years with Rhino and Alan Lancaster among them. But did you know he also wrote a few songs with other people as well? One of which I'm going to talk about here. In fact, 3 of which I'm going to talk about here. The first one being with a member of Queen, Roger Taylor. Now, Roger Taylor, the drummer for Queen, had 6 solo albums to date, the last one being in 2021. And his first album was called Fun in Space in 1981. Now, the next album, Strange Frontier, 1984, has a Rick Parfitt co-credit, and also he plays guitar and offers backing vocals. You probably know which one I'm talking about. It's a song called It's an Illusion, which also features John Deacon of Queen on bass. Now, this track is quite 80s sounding, isn't it? It's very similar to some of the Queen stuff that was being done around that time. So quite contemporary, I think. And the lyrics are quite political, or could be construed as that way. And the way that we've got sort of the synths in there, and then we go into that guitar, that crushing guitar, which is Rick playing those chords. And then as we get into the chorus, we go with the typical kind of Quo boogie thing where Rick is just firing on all cylinders. And that is such a satisfying way to go into it. It's classic, isn't it? And Roger Taylor, from what I've heard of his solo stuff, and of course with his backing vocals in Queen, he is an amazing vocalist. He can reach highs. And in Rick's backing vocals here, he is matching those notes, note for note, in my opinion. He adds extra gravity to stuff. He is offering harmonies in there which just take it to the next level. It's a great track, and it does kind of fall into a trap that I often see, that when people invite Quo musicians to be on these things, you usually know what it's going to sound like, don't you? Or it can feel like that. Da 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 da. That's kind of what you expect. In this case, I think it's a nice little twist on that. Yes, it's there, but we've got those chords in the verse, and of course, coupled with everything, it works. It shows that if Rick wanted to in the 80s, he could have gone even heavier with the music that he was producing. So this is It's an Illusion from Strange Frontier. Do go and listen to it. I believe they were good friends, and I think I read somewhere they were neighbours at some point. So you can imagine the writing sessions there, certainly for this song. Maybe there are other ones out there that we don't know of yet. Could you tell that Rick had a hand in the writing of it? I think so. I think there are some of the hallmarks in there, not just the boogie. So that is my opinion on that. What do you think of It's an Illusion by Roger Taylor featuring Rick Parfitt? Do let me know in the comments below. And also, what do you think of Roger Taylor's solo career outside of Queen? Is there an album in particular that I should be listening to? Do get in contact. So the next one I'm going to talk about is Coast to Coast, a British band from Wellingborough who did a cover version of the Hucklebuck in the early 80s, around 80, 81. And this reached number 5. It was kind of on the tail end of kind of the rock and roll revival thing. And when you look at videos of the band, that's exactly what you're getting there. It was a huge thing. I could imagine it being quite big in the discos. The band actually split in 1982, but I think there were kind of efforts to revive it several times. In 82, they released a single called The Bell, which was written by Parfitt and Bowen. Now, I don't have any other information about this record. It's very difficult to kind of track down things. I don't know what the circumstances of Rick Parfitt and Andy Bowen writing this song are. That's perhaps something to talk to Andy about if I ever get to speak to him. And this song, when you listen to it, the moment I heard it, which it's on YouTube, ripped from a 45, and it kind of just, it gives it a certain quality, which I should talk about. But the moment I heard it, I was like, that's a Rick Parfitt, Andy Bowen song. It just sounded like Status Quo circa 1982, almost taken from the album 1982. The song She Don't Fool Me kind of reminds me of that. It's your typical kind of Quo boogie with your bit of piano in there, and there's just like little inversions in the middle. There's a bit where it sort of goes do 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 do, and it's like, that's really odd. I'm sure I've heard Quo do that kind of thing before. And of course there is a Rossi style solo in there as well. Everything from the high-pitched backing vocals to even the way that the vocalist is singing this song. You can almost imagine Rick or Andy doing these vocals. It kind of sounds like Andy and Rick must have laid down a demo and the musicians have copied it note for note, arrangement for arrangement. It is so those two. It's quite amazing, and could have gone on to, I mean, if Quo had recorded that, you could have gone, yeah, okay, that's very, very Quo. It could have gone on the 1982 album. Now, because the version that's out there is less than ideal, I don't know whether anybody has heard recently those like AI music, right, where it takes a certain genre and it tries to recreate it. Because of the quality of the recording that's out there on the internet, it kind of sounds like AI. It kind of sounds like, this is what a Status Quo song would sound like for, da-da-da or whatever. That is just my personal opinion on that. That is an interesting thing. I didn't know about it until someone mentioned it on a forum the other day. Again, would love to know the circumstances of which this song came to be recorded by Coast to Coast. I would imagine, I don't know the information, but I would imagine what's happened is they've written the song, it's gone up on their songwriter's credit, and then another band has heard it and gone, okay, I'll do that. Maybe Quo turned it down. But when I heard it, it just sounds like Status Quo from 1982. Have you heard The Bell by Coast to Coast? Do let me know in the comments below. Do you like the other tracks that Coast to Coast have done, such as the Hucklebuck and their cover of Let's Jump the Broomstick, both of which were quite big hits in the UK, at least? So the last track I shall be talking about, with a Rick Parfitt co-writing credit for Other People, is one in which he worked on with B.A. Robertson. Now, if you don't know B.A. Robertson, where have you been, for a start? And he is a Scottish musician, composer, and songwriter. And he's kind of famous for those late 70s, early 80s tunes, which were really catchy, but they had like humorous lyrics. Tracks such as Bang Bang and Knocked It Off. If you've never heard them before, go and listen to them, because they are undisputed classics, very of their time, but still timeless in their own way. And he's written songs for loads and loads of people. I mean, he's been around the music industry for a long time. And I like listening to his albums because you have that kind of jokey element, but there are moments where he gets serious and you're like, these are just good pop songs. They work. I think he also composed the second theme tune for the TV show Swap Shop as well as writing the song I Want to Be a Winner for the band Brown Sauce, which was a combination of Maggie Philbin, Keith Chegwin, and Noel Edmonds on Swap Shop. He co-wrote that with Noel Edmonds. Go and check out the video. It's really weird. But you can't help but like it anyway. But B.A. Robertson is an industry veteran. He has done, I think, pretty much everything. And in the early 80s, he released an album called R&B-A, which was a few albums in, and it wasn't really a success. It was released on the Asylum label, but it is one of my favorite albums by B.A. I do think this one works because it kind of goes less in on that humorous element. And he wrote a song on it with Rick Parfitt called Son of a Gun, which has references in the sound. It's sort of a rock and rolly, almost like Saturday night driving rhythm with a bit of funk thrown in for good measure. And the bass line, some of the bass line, certainly in that intro, and some of the riffs are very Peter Gunn by Dwayne Eddy. Now, with the track being called Son of a Gun, with the two N's at the end of the word gun, I would imagine that is a conscious thing and kind of leans into the humorous thing. You know, it's a funny thing to say, son of a gun, you know, that sort of thing. But it is a fun track. It has a very lively thing about it. I personally use the track when I'm doing my exercise routine. It's great to dance to and to move around and to do stretches and stuff because it's got a really good consistent rhythm. It is a little bit underrated, I think, as well. Now, the track doesn't have Rick on it, but it does have on guitar Billy Bremner, who you may know as a very talented musician who's played in many bands, including Rockpile with Nick Lowe and Dave Edmunds as well. And that is, you know, he is almost a master at kind of that rockabilly, rock and rolly kind of guitar, you know, if you want that kind of sound. And this has got it in spades. I like BA's vocals on this track because it kind of sounds, if you remember Mika from later on, it's kind of got those kind of vibes about it. So Rick isn't performing on the track, but he did co-write it and performing backing vocals. And here we go, some cross stuff in the music industry here. The backing vocals on this track are provided by Cliff Richard, the famous singer. And when you hear his vocals at the end, the backing vocals, you can tell that it is Cliff. Now, this is a weird thing because B.A., Cliff, and Rick with Quo have all worked in some capacity with the songwriter and producer, Terry Britton. Now, Terry Britton is very prolific. He's written stuff for Cliff. He's been involved with BA, I think, on co-writes, and he also wrote Jam Side Down for Status Quo. So it's amazing, isn't it? The music world is so big, but it's also very small at the same time. A couple of years before this record, B.A. Robertson actually co-wrote the song Wired for Sound by Cliff Richard. He wrote that song, which you can kind of tell because it's got, again, that kind of almost humorous tone in the lyrics there. You know, I like small speakers, I like big speakers, or whatever it is. If there's music, we're wired for sound. That type of thing. So yeah, to go back to Son of a Gun from R&BA, what do you think of the track? Does it sound like Rick Parfitt had a hand in it? I would say, yeah, there are elements of it. It's got that kind of driving rhythm that you could just imagine like Rick bopping his head to. Yeah, what do you think of it? Do let me know. If I could pick a personal favourite out of these three, I think you know what I'm going to say. For me, it's Son of a Gun, because I just love the vibe, you know, the good feeling vibe. And that in some cases, B.A. Robertson, in my opinion, is very underrated. In some cases, I think B.A. Robertson is very underrated. So let me know what you think of any of these tracks. Let me know also whether there are any tracks I've missed, any others that Rick wrote later that I might not be aware of. Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you again for another episode of the Quo-Cast.